What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video, and this is my favorite video that I do every single year. This is fixing the New York Jets for the 2026 season, year 8. I have done this 8 times. The Jets have not been fixed at any point. I think I will be doing this until I am old and gray. That's where my head's at least with this franchise, but it's a fun video. So I'm trying to make it semi-realistic, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, fire Aaron Glenn and hire John Harbaugh, because that's not a realistic prediction. So unfortunately, maybe I might lose some people right there off the top, but I'm going to do my best to get this team trending in the right direction. And we'll start with some coaching changes, right? The Jets need a defensive coordinator. The guy that I would be targeting the most, and this is an optimistic lens looking at it through, is Jim Schwartz. I think he is the best available option for the New York Jets. Cleveland staff gets blown up. He did interview for the job with Cleveland, but this is a guy who has had success as a defensive coordinator in every single stop that he has had since his days as a head coach in Detroit. Cleveland, very good the last 3 years. Before that, Philadelphia, awesome. They won a Super Bowl. He had 1 year in Buffalo in 2014 before that staff got blown up and Rex Ryan came in. And, you know, he was let go by Detroit 12 years ago. It's a long time. And over the last 12 years, he's been very successful in multiple stops as a defensive coordinator. He runs a 4-3, which the Jets already run. He's an aggressive defensive defensive coordinator, which Aaron Glenn in his press conference said that he wants someone who's aggressive. Something that he uses is with his edge rushers is the wide 9 setup. Robert Saleh would do that, if you remember, where the edge rusher is way, way, way outside and they're able to get downhill. That might benefit a player like Will McDonald, who's really struggled. They play like the term hair on fire. That's a good way to describe Jim Schwartz defense. And yeah, that's like I said, that's a very optimistic lens. I don't know if he would be able to come here, but if Aaron Glenn is able to convince Jim Schwartz to come here, I think that would go a long way to him getting some, not all, but some stock back in the fan base. The next thing is adding a veteran offensive assistant. And I think they almost did this last year, and I think this is the year that they end up doing it. Todd Haley was rumored to be joining the staff last year. I think this is the year that he gets added. It's been a little bit since he's been in the NFL, but this is a successful offensive coordinator in the league. With Arizona when they went to a Super Bowl, with Pittsburgh when they were running with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. He was the OC for the beginning of Baker Mayfield's rookie season, and he has a really good relationship with Aaron Glenn. He was a wide receiver coach when Aaron Glenn was on this Jets team. He's a Parcells guy. Those guys usually tend to stick together. This is a league where, connections really matter. And, at least you could point to sustained success in a couple different spots. I get it. The league has changed a little bit since his biggest heyday. But if you're looking for someone to just kind of guide along Tanner Engstrand, because I think there's some things that Tanner has done and done well, adding a veteran play caller isn't the worst idea. And some senior offensive assistant title for him. I'm not going to go through every positional coach, but, Jim Schwartz can bring his guys in. They could add some more guys on the offensive staff. Maybe you swap out Charles London, the quarterback coach, with somebody else, and you go on your way from there. So let's get into some cuts. The Jets are going into this offseason, according to Over the Cap, with $74.8 million. I think the first and most obvious move that they're going to make is they're going to move on from Justin Fields. If they post June 1 cut, and you could designate one person as your post June 1 cut, Justin Fields would be that guy. $10 million you save, so that immediately goes from 74.8 up to 84.8. Now, some regular cuts, there's not a ton of cut candidates on this Jets team. I think you're looking at like Braden McGregor, Kobe King, Gus Hartwig, Dean Clark, Jordan Clark. Let's just say those guys. And that's an extra 5.1 million, plus or minus a couple more, like maybe Brady McGregor, because he's actually played a decent amount, like he hangs around until training camp. But let's say round number 89.9, and not a round number, but somewhere around $5 million gets you up to $89.9 million in cap space going into free agency. And you could even add a little bit more. So something that I would do if I'm the Jets. So Harrison Phillips, if you give him an extension, you could actually free up some money this year. So I would do that. And he has zero guaranteed money going into 2026. Spread that over 2 years, give him a little bump, and that saves you $4.6 million in 26. So $94.5 million to play with going into free agency, nearly $100 million. All right, let's go through some keeps. I'm going to re-sign John Simpson, and I know that has kind of become a little bit unpopular. The cap hits, by the way, will be in parentheses, but 2 years, $14 million. The cap hits for 2026 will be in parentheses for these. But with John Simpson, this is really more so just about keeping the offensive line together. Now, there's a debate amongst Jet fans whether you bring back Simpson, whether you bring back Elijah Vera Tucker, and there's a good amount of Jet fans who are in on bringing back AVT. I really like the player, but have a hard time getting there due to the fact that he's had 3 separate season-ending injuries in his 5-year Jets career. And it stinks because when he's on the field, I think he's a very good player, but I'm not willing to take that gamble. I think if you're going into the year and it's like, AVT is going to be our left guard, well, the chances are he's going to get hurt. And sure, you can go into the draft and find some depth and be like, hey, we took insert 3rd, 4th round interior offensive lineman in, but you're kind of putting that player in a tough spot. And I want to give the rookie quarterback their best chance to succeed. And I know Simpson's had, some penalty issues, but he's also a leader on this team where the Jets don't have a lot of guys like that. John Simpson hasn't been here very long, but if you look at who are the leaders on offense and defense, 2 guys that stand out, one on offense, John Simpson, one on defense, Harrison Phillips. They've been here like 5 minutes, but they really are the vocal guys in that locker room. And I think you need more guys like that. There's a lot of freelancing going on with this Jets team, and that's got to change. John Mechie, I'm bringing back 1 year, like $2 million, something like that. I think would make a lot of sense. He'll be your 4th or 5th wide receiver, backup slot, rotate in. I thought he at points was okay this year, but worthwhile to bring back and give another look, just not in a huge role. Breece Hall, I would look to bring back. I would try to give him an extension. If not, then franchise tag him or transition tag him. But for me, Breece Hall, 3 years, $31.5 million. I think that's pretty similar to the Kyron Williams contract. I think it's worthwhile to bring him back, and you want to make life as easy for your young quarterback as possible. He's a good player, at times overrated by Jets fans, also at times underrated by Jets fans. It's kind of skewed too far the other way. I don't think he's elite. I think he's a good player who, can be a safety net for a young quarterback in the passing game. And I like the idea of Hall, Allen, and Isaiah Davis going into next year as your 3 backs. I'd bring back Andrew Beck, $1.5 million, something like that, as your fullback. Keep him around. Max Mitchell, I'd also bring back as tackle depth, 1 year, $1.5 million. So that has you sitting at $75.5 million going into external free agency. Guys, think you know football? Then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players. With more stats than any other daily fantasy app, just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live, pick more or less from their predicted stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use my promo code O'Leary, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit, or you could take the free $20 no deposit required promo. Terms and conditions apply. All right, external free agency. I think the guy that the Jets are going to sign on day 1 of free agency is Alex Anzalone. Something like a 2-year, $15 million contract. He is very, very close with Aaron Glenn. They were both together in Detroit, obviously. Anzalone was also in New Orleans. And I get, like, some people are going to point to his age and, like, do you really want to sign a guy who's 31 years old? One, he's still a good player. He had 95 tackles, and he's very good in coverage, something that Quincy Williams and Jamie Sherwood are not. And I know the comparison is kind of beaten to death, but I think he could be Aaron Glenn's version of Bart Scott, where Rex Ryan brings in Bart Scott, and he's that veteran leader on the defense and kind of shows the guys the ropes on, all right, this is how we're going to do it. I think Anzalone would be that too. And also, not for nothing, the Jets need smarter football players. And this is going to come across as really harsh, but the Jets defense, one, where they were not schemed up very well last year, but they're also a very dumb unit. And I know that comes across as harsh, but when you see every single week Quincy Williams and Jamie Sherwood, biting on the play action, that's not going to happen nearly as much with Alex Anzalone. And sure, there's times where, that's why play actions run. Sometimes you get beat by it. But Anzalone's a smart football player. And an underrated thing for the last 2 years that I think has been an issue for this Jets team, they missed CJ Mosley. And, towards the end, especially the last year that Mosley tried to go, he was clearly banged up a ton and really couldn't play all that much a couple of years ago. But, his football IQ was desperately missed. I know fans would get on him, be like, oh, he's overrated. He's not worth the money. Yeah, he got a ridiculous contract when he was signed in 2019, but the Jets need more smart football players. They're very dumb on defense. I'd also look to make a signing at safety, and I think Cameron Curl would be my target. The Rams made a decision and brought back one of their other safeties, so I don't think they're going to sign 2 safeties to long-term deals. So 3 years, $54 million, I think is roughly what you're looking at for Cam Curl. Something that I like about his game, he's a good tackler. And, career missed tackle rate is just 10.2%. And that has been such a frustrating issue for this Jets team on the back end, is how poorly they tackle. After watching Tony Adams for years and years and years trying to do it, they need a desperate upgrade. Cameron Curl, he's 27 years old, so he's still in his prime. And he's a bigger safety, 6'2", 198 pounds. Enough of these small little guys running around back there. It's not working. Get bigger, get more physical. I think that fits the style on defense that the Jets are more willing to play in 2026. I also think the Jets need to bring in a veteran quarterback. My choice is Marcus Mariota. I think the Malik Willis contract is going to get to an egregious number, similar to what Justin Fields was a year ago. The Jets with the number 2 pick, I think, should be targeting a quarterback at that spot. But bring in Mariota, 1 year, $8 million, a very similar contract to what he just had. He's a vet quarterback with 82 starts under his belt. He can start the year until your young quarterback is ready. He could just be someone to lean on if they want to start their young quarterback out of the gate. But I think they need someone here. Like, that quarterback room needs to be completely reworked. And I'm not saying that Mariota is this great option for the New York Jets, but at least over the last couple years, he's been able to come in and start and be okay for you. And okay is sadly an upgrade. I also want to do a reunion. The Jets made a very dumb decision before the start of the 2024 season. They traded away John Franklin Myers. I would re-sign John Franklin Myers. I don't think it was an ugly breakup. I think he really liked it here. And we talked about leaders and smart football players. John Franklin Myers is that. 2 years, $24 million. 7.5 sacks, 39 pressures. He's good against the run. It was a mistake to let him go in the first place. Right the wrong. Please right the wrong. He's a versatile player. He could play edge for you. He can kick inside. Just a good football player, a tough guy, and a leader, which, again, they need a lot more of that. Okay, I got a couple more for you. We talked about completely reworking the quarterback room. I would add another one. Bring in, I don't know, someone like Sam Howell, a guy who's also started in this league, 1 year, $2.5 million. Worst case scenario, he's QB3 for you. Best case scenario, he's competing for the job. And there were points in Washington where he looked okay, but I think they really need to have multiple quarterbacks in here because, well, it's the Jets. They always seem to start 2-3 quarterbacks, and like, you need to raise your floor of that room. And with the hot seat that Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are going to enter in 2026, they need to win games. And I think having some combination of Howell, Mariota, and a rookie is a big upgrade over the room that they just had this past year. Also, I think Nick Folk retires, so they're going to be in the kicker market. Daniel Carlson's been a pretty good kicker in this league. 1 year, about $2 million. There's not a ton of free agent available kickers. His career 86.9%. He's still young relative for kickers, at least at 31, so he could be here for a few years if it works out. But you don't need to sign him to a long-term deal. And the Raiders are going to have a new coach. They're going through a transition. I don't know if they're going to really, spring to be like, oh my God, we got to bring back Daniel Carlson. Maybe they do. But if he's available, I think he's the best option available to them. Before we get into the mock draft, I want to talk about why I think the Jets need to make a couple of trades. They have a ton, and I mean a ton of day 3 picks. And last year, what we saw them do is flip day 3 capital for already established players. The Jets have a ton of cap space. They should be looking at teams who are likely going to have cut candidates that they can give up a day 3 pick and bring a guy in who could actually play for you and be an upgrade. And to me, one of the more obvious names for this is safety from the Atlanta Falcons, Jesse Bates. I would trade a 5th round pick for Jesse Bates. Why? As I just explained, he's a cut candidate for the Falcons. Falcons are going to have a new coach. His cap hit in 2026 for the Falcons, not for the Jets, but for the Falcons, would be $24 million. They have a young safety on that roster in Xavier Watts. And the acquiring team, so on the Jets, he would have a $14 million cap hit, a $10 million difference. $14 million is a fair price point for the player type of Jesse Bates. And they need to improve drastically at the safety position. Bates was the guy that I would have targeted a couple years ago when he initially became a free agent. And again, if you're telling me I could swap a 5th round pick and get an immediate impact starter on the back end of my defense, I'm doing it. And then also something that I would look to do. So I'm bringing in Jim Schwartz. So what I wanted to do was look at some guys on the Cleveland Browns who, maybe played some small roles in that defense, but looked okay in that role. Like, do you really need to sit there in the 7th round and select 3 guys? So I'm trading a 2026 7th round pick for interior defensive lineman Aiden Huntington from the Browns. He only played 20% of the defensive snaps for Cleveland last year under Jim Schwartz, but honestly, he was pretty solid depth for them. And those are one of those guys that really fit the Glenn and Muji model of buying low on a rookie contract. He would be cheap. He can be a part of this rotation on the interior defensive line. They don't have a star yet on the interior defensive line. Not that I think Huntington could be a star. But again, this is about buying low on a player who's kind of just lost on the Browns depth chart because of how good their defensive line is and giving him a better opportunity. So you have $21.2 million remaining going into the NFL draft. All right, let's get into the draft. Round 1, pick 2. I have the Jets selecting Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. Now, he very well could, keyword being could, go number 1 overall. I don't think it's as much of a lock as some other people believe for a few things. One, he's personally my quarterback 1 in the class. But Dante Moore, and it's very contingent. There's a game later today. This video is going to come out on Friday. Later tonight, there's a really big game between Oregon and Indiana. One, I think Dante Moore is coming out and entering the draft, just regardless. But I think there's a chance that there will be a decent amount of NFL teams that prefer Dante Moore over Fernando Mendoza because of the ceiling that he provides. And if you look at the history, recent history too, of the Vegas Raiders, they tend to draft for ceilings. Brock Bowers, a couple years ago, that was a ceiling pick. He's been really good. Ashton Jeanty, ceiling pick. They've also had some weird ones like, Henry Ruggs. That was also a ceiling pick. Cleveland Ferrell early in, 4th overall, 6th overall pick. They like to take big swings. And at the number 1 overall pick, if you are trying to find a quarterback who could be a top 5 quarterback in the league, I think Dante Moore's ceiling is higher than Fernando Mendoza, but I also think he's a higher variance player. I think there's a potential low floor, but a potential higher ceiling. And I could see, especially if he goes out and wins a national championship, I could see a lot of teams falling in love with him. So I don't think it's crazy to say Fernando Mendoza may, keyword being may, be available. And you could honestly sit Fernando if you wanted to. Sit him behind Mariota or Howell if you wish. You could start him. You have a ton of different options for you. With the Colts first round pick at 16, I have the Jets selecting Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. I think he would be perfect in this offense. You put him in the slot. You have Garrett Wilson and A.D. Mitchell outside. Mekhi Lemon catches everything. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. Would be an explosive player for this offense, and I think would complement what Garrett and A.D. Mitchell do well. So I think wide receiver is a big need. He could be your wide receiver too. At the top of the second round, the Jets have the first pick in the second round, so pick number 33. I have the Jets selecting C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. He's got great speed, low missed tackle rate, and he's good in coverage. The Jets need to really, really improve their linebacker room in coverage. And, I didn't cut Jamie Sherwood because I don't think that they can get out of that contract this year. But Allen would play a lot in this defense, and I think could take over for Jamie Sherwood next year when it's a little bit easier to get out of that contract, assuming that Sherwood has another poor year like he just did this year. The Jets don't have a third round pick, so I would not be surprised at all if they trade down in the second round with pick 44. I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team with multiple third round picks that maybe they want to move up and, try their luck at a player a little bit higher. So I have the Jets trade pick 44 for 53. So they move down 9 spots and pick up pick number 99 in the third round. At 53, I'm taking Zion Young, edge rusher out of Missouri. He's a good tackler. He's a bigger edge at 6'5", 263. Jets need more on their defensive line. I would absolutely look to add an edge rusher there. With pick 99, I'm taking Zakee Wheatley out of Penn State at safety. I know I just brought in 2 new starters at safety, but they may be shorter term options. What I love about him is he has the speed to be a free safety center fielder type on your defense. And he's a former wide receiver, so he has really good ball skills. The Jets had 0 interceptions in 2026. In this draft, I am emphasizing players who could take the football away. And I think Wheatley can absolutely do that. And right now, that's where he's projected to go, roughly in the 3rd or 4th round. At round 4, pick 103, I'm taking Joe Royer, tight end out of Cincinnati. I think the Jets need to add a 3rd tight end. Ruckert's brought back. Mason Taylor is going to be given back next year. Add another one. Royer's a good inline blocker. He has reliable hands. I don't think he's going to be a stud at the next level, but could he develop into a pretty solid tight end too? I think so. And Jeremy Ruckert is probably only here for another year. Who knows? Maybe he continues to play well and they keep bringing him back, but add more to that tight end room. Round 5, pick 175, Logan Jones, the center out of Iowa. The trenches out of Iowa seems like always a good pick, but Josh Myers was brought back on a short-term deal. I would take a developmental interior offensive lineman. And for me, Logan Jones fits what the Jets want to do. He moves well. I think he would work well in an outside zone rushing scheme. He's a good athlete and a team captain. I know, I'm not going to just say, oh, you got to draft all team captains, but Jets need a culture change, right? So draft team captains. Round 6, pick 193, Zane Durant, an interior defensive lineman from Penn State. He made Bruce Feldman's freak list, really freaky athlete, good speed for an interior defensive lineman. At this point in the draft, I am betting on traits. And in the 6th and 7th round, your hit rate is really, really low to begin with. But how I would approach it is try to bet on pick some athletic traits that you like and see if you could develop them further. And that's what I'm doing with Durant here. Okay, round 6, 204, Josh Moten, cornerback out of Southern Miss. Why am I looking at Josh Moten? Why do I think he fits the bill for the New York Jets? 1, he's a bigger outside corner, which Aaron Glenn seems to like, 6 foot, 185 pounds. He also has 10 interceptions in the last 2 years, 5 in 2025 and 5 in 2024. I'm going to reiterate it again and emphasize it because the Jets had 0 in 2025. And Moten would be depth for you, right? You're not drafting him to be like, hey, in the 6th round, you're going to be expected to start. But they, again, need football players who could actually take the football away. He fits the size profile that they like at corner, and he's also a bit of a ball hawk. Round 7, pick 211. I'm going to take offensive tackle out of Nebraska, Elijah Pritchett. This is just a project tackle. I don't think it hurts to, find your depth in the 6th and 7th round. And who knows what he ends up being, but he has the prototypical size at 6'6", 310. He played both left and right tackle at Nebraska. So if he develops into even just someone who could be a reliable backup for you, like I know you have, Membu obviously at right tackle, and you have Fashanu at left tackle, and they're going to be the starters here for a while. But I'm bringing back Max Mitchell back, but you need a swing tackle. And maybe that's what you could find in Pritchett in the 7th round. And then my last picks, round 7, pick 240. Again, we're betting on traits in the 6th and 7th round. And I just love this dude's name, Squirrel White, the wide receiver out of FSU. He's really more of a return specialist than he is a wide receiver. And I know they have Isaiah Williams. He's under contract for next year. But it doesn't hurt to bet on just insane athletes in the end of the draft. He won't give you a ton as a wide receiver at the next level, I don't think. But he is crazy dangerous with the ball in his hands. Kene Nwanu's probably not coming back. He's been injured a ton over the last couple of years. So, Isaiah Williams, he'll be your kick and punt returner. But it doesn't hurt to have someone that you're grooming behind him to eventually take over. So with that, let's take a look at the depth chart for the New York Jets. So after my free agency trades and, of course, the NFL draft, here's how my depth chart looks like for the Jets. At quarterback, you have Mariota, Mendoza, and Howell. Running back, Hall, Allen, and Davis. Starting outside receivers are Garrett Wilson, A.D. Mitchell, with Williams and White as primary backups in the slot. Lemon with Mechie and Arian Smith as some backups there. At tight end, Taylor, Rucker, and Royer. Left tackle, Fashanu and Mitchell. Left guard, Simpson. Starting center is Josh Myers with Jones as your primary interior offensive lineman backup. Joe Tippmann starting at right guard. And right tackle, Membu with Pritchett as the main backup there. Looking at defense, edge, Jermaine Johnson as a starter with Will McDonald also listed there, but you really changed your edge room with draft and free agency. On the other side, I have Franklin Myers and Young in the 2nd round. Rotate those guys however you see fit, right? Like, I don't think it necessarily matters. And Franklin Myers could also kick inside. Like, he could do a lot. Those are your edge rushers. Play them however you wish. Interior defensive linemen, Phillips, Huntington, Briggs, and Durant, I think will be the main 4. At linebacker, you have Anzalone, Jones, Sherwood, and Maui Noah as the top 4. Cornerbacks, starting A.Z. Thomas, Brandon Stevens, and Brownlee with Stiggers and Moten as your top backups at the position. At safety, completely reworked that room. Jesse Bates as your starting safety with Malachi Moore as probably really more your 3rd safety, with Curl and Wheatley as your free safeties. Kicker is Carlson, punter McNamara, and long snapper is the GOAT, Thomas Hennessy. Kick and punt returner, you're looking at Isaiah Williams and Squirrel White. How'd I do fixing the New York Jets? Let me know in the comments. What would you do differently? How did you think that I did with my approach in fixing the New York Jets? And hopefully I don't have to make this video next year, but you never know. Guys, that'll do it for me. I'm Matt O'Leary. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'll catch you next time.